This day in sports history.
Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
And welcome back to another edition of This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. It's September 23rd, and have you ever said something was boneheaded or that was a real boneheaded play? Well, that all got started thanks to what happened on this day back in 1908. The Chicago Cubs and New York Giants were locked in a tight pennant chase. The two teams were tied, and this was the third game of a four-game series between them. The game was played at New York's Polo Grounds, which plays into a good bit of the controversy from this game. Also, you need to know that the day before, Cubs second baseman Johnny Evers talked with the umpires for this series, Hank O'Day and Bob Emsley, about runners not touching the next bag on a walk-off hit. In essence, men on first and third, batter hits one to the outfield, the runner on third has to touch home plate. Now that's a given, but the man on first must also touch second base before leaving the base path. If he doesn't, it opens it up for an appeal. Well, Evers said he'd be looking for it, and he told the umps that he was going to appeal if he saw it. Well, that scenario is exactly what came up in this game. Score tied at 1 in the bottom of the ninth inning, men on first and third. The Giants' Al Bridwell lined one into the outfield gap, and it rolled to the fence. Moose McCormick raced home from third. Now, 19-year-old Fred Merkle, the runner on first, figured the game was over, and he trotted off the field to celebrate the win with his teammates. Well, Evers was watching Merkle like a hawk, and he screamed for the ball to be thrown to him at second base. Several Giants saw what Evers was attempting to do and raced onto the field to prevent it. The Giants' fans were celebrating at this point, and they had raced out onto the field as well. Now, that was not atypical. Fans had to cross the field anyway to exit through the outfield gate to leave the game, but they were celebrating and marching across the field at the same time. Now, whether Evers actually touched second to protest the play or not, the ball was actually ripped out of his hands by a Giants fan and then heaved into the stands. It was pandemonium on the field. The Cubs were arguing that Merkle never touched second base. The umpires did not know exactly what happened either. There were only two of them. They couldn't see everything. The two men retreated to a cage under the stands to discuss the situation. And while they talked, the police worked to redirect the angry mob of fans out of the stadium while also escorting the Cubs players to safety. It was not until the next day that the umpires delivered their verdict. Merkle had not touched second, and therefore, the run didn't score. The game was declared a tie. The decision was upheld, a makeup game was ordered to be played, and the Chicago Cubs won the makeup game. So, to simplify the story, if Merkle touches second, run counts, Giants win the game, they take a lead in the standings, and they go on to win the league and play in the World Series. Because of Merkle's play, they did not. And when Chicago won the makeup, the Cubs ended up winning the pennant, and then they went on to win the World Series. So this play became known as Merkle's boner, which thankfully was turned into bonehead, and now whenever somebody does something to cost their team a game or they make a silly mistake, it's a boneheaded play, thanks to what Fred Merkle did on this day in 1908. Sadly for Fred Merkle, this one play actually overshadowed a pretty solid career. He played 16 years in the majors, collected nearly 1,600 hits, and stole 272 bases. On this day in 2001, the NFL resumed games after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. It wasn't known at the time, but one of those games would impact the NFL for years to come. The 0-1 New York Jets were on the road in Foxborough against an 0-1 New England Patriots team. With 5:09 to play in the game, The Jets leading 10-3, quarterback Drew Bledsoe looked downfield. Then he rolled to his right and finally tucked it and ran towards the sideline. Before he got out of bounds, though, he was hit by linebacker Mo Lewis. The hit jarred the ball loose, and it also jarred something loose inside Bledsoe. He was rushed to the hospital and treated for internal bleeding that could have killed him. Bledsoe was a 3-time Pro Bowler who had led the Patriots to Super Bowl 31 and in the spring had signed a 10-year, $100 million contract. Bledsoe would miss the rest of the season. Of course, even the most casual football fan knows that rookie quarterback Tom Brady took over the New England offense and what happened in the years that followed. In the minutes that followed, though, there wasn't any Hollywood ending in this script. The game ended with the Jets winning 10-3. However, a team that had gone 5-11 the season before would turn things around, winning their last 6 regular season games and then plowing through the playoffs to win Super Bowl 36. Have you ever heard of Lyman Bostock? Baltimore Orioles manager Earl Weaver once said that Lyman would win 5 or 6 batting titles before he was done playing baseball. Lyman begged California Angels owner Gene Autry to take back his pay increase so that management could sign a free agent that the team needed. A teammate once said of Bostock, he was one of the best people you'd ever be blessed to know. Lyman loved listening to jazz, and one day he dreamed of just driving around the country in his RV with his wife. He was never given that chance to win those batting titles, though, and he didn't live long enough to enjoy the RV. Instead, on this day in 1978, California Angels outfielder Lyman Bostock was shot and killed in his hometown of Gary, Indiana. This was a Saturday, and the Angels were in Chicago playing a series with the White Sox. It had been an afternoon game at Comiskey. Bostock, hitting third in the lineup, went 2 for 4 with a double and scored a run in a 5-4 loss. As he typically did whenever he played in Chicago on a Saturday afternoon, he traveled the 30 miles back to Gary to visit his uncle after the game. As it seems to be the case any time a tragedy like this happens, everybody around always wonders, what if? And there are a lot here, but the specifics of what happened are in essence at 10:40 p.m., a jealous husband who thought that Lyman was the man his estranged wife was having an affair with, shot him. Lyman was riding in the back seat of a car with the jealous husband's wife. There were 2 others in the car with them in the front seat. They were going across town to visit another friend and then take the woman back to her house after that. The jealous husband caught up with the car at the corner of 5th and Jackson. But in a case of mistaken identity, the jealous man leveled a shotgun at Lyman and fired, the pellets striking him in the face. He was taken to the hospital, but was pronounced dead 2 hours later. Bostock shouldn't have been in that car. Many say he shouldn't have been in Gary to begin with. So many what-ifs. Lyman Bostock played 4 seasons in Major League Baseball, 3 with Minnesota, and this was his first with the Angels. He was a career .311 hitter in his short time in the majors. Lyman Bostock was 27 years old. Let's end this episode on a little happier note. On this day in 2012, golfer Brandt Snedeker won the season-ending Tour Championship, played at Atlanta's East Lake Golf Club. It wasn't a dramatic finish. Instead, he won by a comfortable 3-shot margin over Justin Rose. His total winnings on the day were $11.44 million. Snedeker was obviously overjoyed to have won so much money and to be financially secure for life as long as he, well, as he put it, didn't act like an idiot. It was his 4th win on tour, and afterwards he said, "I'm not a flashy guy. I don't need $11 million. So there are going to be things we can do to really help people." He and his wife, Mandy, set up the Snedeker Foundation. That foundation supports and helps underprivileged young people in Tennessee. And just this year, the work that Brandt and Mandy have done earned him the PGA's Payne Stewart Award, given annually to the tour player who best exemplifies Payne Stewart's values of character, charity, and sportsmanship. And time now for today's Nothing to Do with Sports Did You Know? In order to make the 1972 film The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola had to comply with mafia demands. Certain members of La Cosa Nostra were concerned about the portrayal of Italian Americans in the movie. Joseph Colombo, head of New York's Colombo crime family, was involved in the script process, and he was adamant that the word mafia not be used. La Cosa Nostra was also involved in casting, and members of the mob hung around the set during filming. That's all I've got for you today. This and every episode of This Day in Sports History is researched, written, voiced, and produced by me, Steve White. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow with another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.